Good morning, everybody, and welcome to what is actually our third conversation with Brenton, who's the Director of Business Development and Marketing at Dentons, the world's largest law firm here in Australia. So, Denton, good morning to you.
Morning, Alistair.
Thank you for appearing again on the series. Quite a few pieces of water have gone under the bridge behind us since our last discussion, which tended to focus on things I think that internally firms had done and changed as a result of the pandemic. So I thought I might change the focus to start this discussion around what, if anything, have you seen change with clients? What's their focus on these days?
Sure. Look, I think that's a good place to start, Alistair. I think any firm that's still looking internally about the way they're going about BD has probably missed a trick, and their competitors will have a march on them at this stage. But in terms of clients, look, I think there's a couple of significant changes or trends that I've noticed over the past, say, 12 to 18 months. And first and foremost of those is clients are really looking for a much deeper understanding from their advisors of their business, how their business operates, what are the drivers of those businesses, what are the risks, what are the issues that those businesses are facing. And I think that's something that firms really need to think about, how they're developing that understanding. It's really no longer enough just to understand the business in terms of the advice that you give. You need to understand the business as a whole and be able to advise them in the context of the environment that that business faces. So that's one of the key trends. And I think the second key trend that we've really started to see come through over the course of this pandemic is organizations looking to work with a smaller number of firms. So we've seen it with legal panels, for example. A lot of organizations have been looking to reduce the size of those legal panels, but they're expecting more from those firms that they are working with. So they're expecting that deeper understanding. They're expecting firms to bring them ideas, to bring them insights, to bring them introductions and opportunities, and really work closely with those organizations rather than just be seen as an external service provider.
So particularly in a business-to-business environment, does that require a firm to really have vertical expertise in certain industry sectors, for example?
I think vertical expertise helps enormously. It helps the focus for the firm of where you're actually spending your time, but it means that you're able to bring insights and ideas from that industry to that organization. You're not just trying to look across the entire market and apply different ideas from different industries. You're able to really hone in on what are the drivers of that industry. And I don't think there's been a huge change in the market in regards to that, but I think those firms that do that well and know the space that they play are in a much better position to really add that value to those clients.
It's interesting. It's an observation I share with people. You might be familiar with Patrick J. McKenna from the USA, who does an awful lot of work around this space. And he passionately talks about law firms putting their flag in the sand to own things like manufacturing as a sector, but then talks about the fact there's 90 odd subsectors within manufacturing. So, are you manufacturing highlighting pens or solar panels? It's two very different things to own the space. And so the amount of micro niches within these larger industry sectors, there's a huge opportunity there for people.
Look, absolutely. And I think the key there is just making sure that that micro niche has enough work. Is there a great enough opportunity there that it is worth pursuing and worth being a specialist in that area? It's a good point though, Alistair. And I think one of the traps is trying to be all things to all people. You can't be an expert in everything. If there's 30 industries that you're an expert in, chances are you're probably not actually an expert in any of them, but you can be an expert in a couple of industries, and really focusing on those and adding the value to your clients through your knowledge of those industries. It's a great way to go to market.
And inevitably that's going to drive the type of content that you're putting in front of these clients and prospects and referrers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the changes that we've seen, and it's been coming for a long time, I think it was heightened by the onset of the pandemic, but is this sort of idea or concept of hyper-personalization, really tailoring the content that you're getting to market to the client that you're trying to market to. Now, mass marketing has always had a place. The effectiveness of those sort of campaigns, I think, has always been questionable. but I do think that it has a place. It's great at creating awareness, but what you can't create from that is favorability. You can't create revenue from that. What you need to do if you're doing those mass marketing type campaigns is think about how you're able to translate those into the personalization for an individual client. How are you able to transition from a marketing campaign into a business development campaign? Get that content in front of your client and be able to discuss it with them in a way that is relevant and specific to them. If you can do that, it's worth doing your mass marketing. If you're just pushing content out to a really broad audience and hoping that that's going to result in revenue coming into your firm or relationships being deepened, I don't think that that's going to be the case.
And have you had any particular successes with a certain type of reach out in, the last 12 months or so? I know I've been, championing the use of video and different platforms on which to reach out to people. Have you seen any changes in that space?
I think the more you're able to mix it up, the better. Video is great. People enjoy absorbing short videos. People like podcasts. I think the days of the long written content is probably gone. People don't have the attention span for that. You need to think about the way people are going to absorb your content. Most of us are going to absorb that content on a mobile phone. If you have to read pages and pages scrolling screen after screen, you're not going to make it through. So I think if you're using written, it really needs to be short, sharp, punchy, the answer up front, the takeaway up front, with a short amount of content following it. But I think really mixing it up and using different platforms or media to reach your audience is the best way to go. I think people will end up getting tired of a single approach.
Yeah, I've long championed having over 20 ways to become visible and credible to the target market. And even this week, I posted an article, which was a McKinsey article about omni-channel presence, if you really wanted to do better in a B2B environment. So good messages there for the people watching. Any particular things around tenders you may have seen? I know everybody on here won't necessarily be involved with tenders, but they do have a place in the larger firms. Yeah,
tenders, I think, and again, a trend that has been coming for a while and was heightened by the pandemic is, much more specificity in the way clients are asking for information in tenders. We don't see as many large-scale tenders that we used to. Clients are really honing in on that information that is relevant to them and that is going to help them make a decision on which firms they want to work with in the coming 3 to 5 year period. The other trend, as I mentioned before, is really a trend to just reducing the size of those legal panels. And I think those two issues go absolutely hand in glove. They're both sort of working towards achieving the same thing, which is selecting those firms that understand those businesses best and that are going to be able to deliver the most value to them. And can demonstrate a track record via case studies and testimonials and hopefully client service and things like that, service delivery. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interesting with the case studies, I think that's a great way to present your capability in responses to clients. I remember the days when we used to put really long lists of every matter that we'd worked in and hope that the client would then draw the conclusion or work out which ones were most relevant to them. I think 2 or 3 case studies demonstrating what the firm has done, how it's relevant to the organisation that they're pitching to, and then ultimately how it's going to benefit that organisation is a much better way to try and present your credentials than shopping lists of previous matters. It might be just a quick one-liner on the difference here between marketing and business development. So you win your successful tender with the big agency or the government department, etc., but then people still actually don't win much work just because they're on the panel. Have you got anything to share on there, on your thoughts? Because it does happen, it's regular. The getting on the panels, the first step, not the last step. I think the actual work of winning that client starts once you're on the panel. That's, the ticket to the dance is the old phrase. Once you've got that, you've then got access to the organisation. You still then need to build your relationships internally, develop and present your value proposition to the individuals who are going to be instructing you on work. It's really the start of the process. You've got to be on the panel if you're going to actually get work out of it. But you can't see that as the end of the process and hope that the phone is just going to ring because you're on the panel list.
Okay, inevitably, I have to mention the return to office thing, and if that changes anything around events and all these types of things, which typically have been important in a law firm marketing budget. You know, yesterday, in theory, here in Sydney, 1st of March was the return to office. I'm not quite sure that happened due to bad weather, but you know, do you see that having an impact? Do you think there's more of a hunger to have in-person events again? Are we ready for that yet?
Yeah, look, I think there is generally an appetite for people to start engaging face to face. I think all of the virtual tools that we've had have been good substitutes while we haven't been able to do that. I think there's still some nervousness, some reluctance with some people around face to face events. So there will be a ramp up period, but I think in general we will start to see more of those face to face events come back. I think maybe there are some exceptions to that though, and I think about in-person content delivery sessions. So in a legal context, we traditionally call them the CLE sessions, where before the pandemic, we'd have people in a room, presenter up the front, a 45-minute, hour delivery session, questions and answers and canapes and so forth afterwards. I think we've been through 2 years of being able to deliver and absorb that content in a virtual environment. And I think for a lot of people, and myself absolutely included, it's a much more efficient way to gain that knowledge. You can sit on a webinar for 45 minutes or an hour. If there's a part of the topic that's maybe not quite relevant to you, you're able to sort of continue your day, punch out some emails while you're there, dip back into that content as it circles back around and becomes more relevant. You can gain that knowledge in that 45, 60-minute window rather than having to, walk up to someone else's office, spend time, doing the small talk, sit through the session, reverse at the end. It can take up to 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I think those sort of sessions, my view is that I think we're going to maintain those in a virtual world. I think there's a lot of benefits for them. I think where we start to see things come back into a physical scenario, things like roundtables, where you get a dozen people around a table and you've got a real exchange of ideas, not just a lecture, so to speak, from one person. So I think those are the sort of things we'll see much more face to face. The pure entertainment, I think, it's a really interesting watch this space. I think now that we're returning to work in a much more agile way, and people are not going to be in the office every day of the week, I just don't think that people are going to allocate as much time for those pure entertainment events. Some
youngster told me the other day that Thursday's the new Friday.
Yeah, look, Thursday used to always be the day that we go, but personally, Thursday is my work from home day. For me, it suits my lifestyle. Family commitments on a Thursday evening, that works for me. So I think just sort of recognizing a single day as being the answer is going to be really problematic. I don't think you'll ever find the perfect day that we used to be able to find previously. Just to quickly flip back to the online sessions, I think if you are hosting those sessions, it is easy for people to disengage. Just hit the mute button, turn the camera off, and just let the content wash over you. So I think where we are running those types of sessions, we need to work really hard to make sure that they're engaging, that they're bringing people into the conversation. And the best tool that I've seen work for that is really small breakout rooms through the course of it. So over the course of an hour, you might have 2 to 3, 5 to 7 minute breakout sessions to discuss what's just been presented. And I mean small, like 3 to 4 people. And I think one of the benefits there is that everyone can have a say in a group of 3 to 4 people, put their view across, listen to the others. But you also get this fantastic benefit of actually building relationship with some other people that you may not have known before. And I think, from a professional services firm point of view, that's one of the tools in our bag. We can connect people, we can help them build relationships. So sometimes it's a case of, let's leave our own people out of those rooms and just put the clients in there and let that magic happen.
Yeah, it's interesting that the appetite, because I didn't know whether it was just a lawyer thing. So I've probably got 10 or 12 sessions in the month of March for various law societies doing end of year CPD, CLE sessions, and all but one are online. And when I rang up and said, what's the level of registrants, the in-person session is in theory going to be the least well attended.
Yeah.
So people still are very happy to take on board that learning in a remote environment for the moment, for sure.
Yeah, look, I've had that discussion with numerous people, both within the law industry and clients as well, and there's really mixed views on that. So my view is just my view around that. I think it's going to be really interesting to see the way that evolves. The one thing I will say, I think there's sometimes a push towards doing a hybrid event. Let's do an in-person event and broadcast it online as well. I'm absolutely against those. I think that just ends up with the worst of both worlds, because you end up talking to one of those two audiences. Either you're presenting to the camera and the in-person audience doesn't feel engaged, or you're presenting to the in-person audience and the online audience doesn't feel engaged. So I really recommend against those, but again, personal preference.
Okay, I'm conscious of time and keeping you from your day job. So in terms of wrapping it up, is there any other trends or things that you've seen, or have you seen a heavier reliance on referrals from existing clients rather than reaching out to potential new clients over the last year or so?
Look, I think with the trend for smaller groups of advisors that clients are working with, what that says to me is that looking after your existing clients is really important, and looking after them in terms of the work that you're doing. I think we all understand that, we need to, deliver a high quality product and meet the client's expectations in terms of communication and timeliness, all of those basics. But what can't get forgotten in that is, how are you adding value beyond the work that you are doing? So, in a traditional marketing sense, we think about, how are we taking ideas and insights to our clients and our targets. Very much got to keep that front of mind for those really good clients that we're working with. We can't just focus on the day-to-day. I think winning clients is always important. I always advocate that you've got to have some clients that you're trying to win, some new to firm clients, or at least new to you clients that you're trying to win, because you never know what's going to happen with your existing clients. Relationships can move on, people move on. There may be a change in policy. Your firm may not be reappointed to the panel. A client may experience a solvency issue. You just don't know what's going to happen. So I think you've always got to be feeding the pipeline with those new clients, but don't just focus on those. Don't forget those existing clients. They're the clients that are important for you today, and you want them to be at least as important tomorrow, and hopefully even more important for you tomorrow.
All right, I think very wise words to finish. So once again, thank you for your time, Brenton, and I look forward to having another chat with you soon. Cheers.
Pleasure, Alistair. Thank you.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye.